Sit.
I'm so glad we have editing tools. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Influential Oregonian. Go ahead and leave that in. It's better this way, where it shows how professional we are. Where we have discussions on Oregon history and academics and interview important people who have made history within or in the name of the Beaver State. I'm your host, Marcus Axford from the show Welcome to Oregon, joined by my boon companions, archaeologist and Marquist of Salem, David Winkler, and Finn J.D. John of Offbeat, Oregon, and the Baron of Corvallis. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thanks, Marcus. Great to be here.
And may I say, we're about to meet our Warlord of the West.
Oh my God, yes!
Very nice.
Never got that title before. That's new.
That's okay. The household calls me the King of Oregon. So yeah, we are also joined today by one of our newest staff members who I've definitely talked about several times before. One of my very best friends, Kenny Stella.
Hello, everybody.
Kenny.
Look we're doing a podcast again.
Kenny.
Oh my gosh. It's like almost like how long ago was it? 3 years ago?
Yeah, 3 years. It's almost like it was 3 years.
Yeah, oh my god, it was 22.
Yep. It was
Oh jeez, man. Jeez.
Can I just say how nice it is to have a script in front of my face again? I'm glad we don't have to be like strictly like on home, but not on the cuff. That's off the cuff, but you know what I mean. It's nice that I can just wing it sometimes. Alrighty, so before we get into what we're going to be talking about today, which is the Willamette University archaeological project that we went to last weekend, which I'll also talk about in the updates. Excuse me. So I know this one's late too. At least this one's only a week late. I got the 50th episode of Welcome to Oregon published, and it is
Very nice.
I think the longest one I have done. It's like 42 to 45 minutes long.
Dan Carlin sitting pretty with his 3-hour episodes going, that's adorable.
Do you know
Yeah.
he does those things in one take?
Does he really?
He doesn't use notes. He Skyped into Skype used to be a thing back in the day, and he Skyped into a podcasting class and talked about this. And it's just like, I guess when you're an old radio guy, you can just do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just open up the microphone and go. He's got his notes. He knows his story. He just tells it.
Yeah. That's his version of saying, get good.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'm helpless without a script typically.
I'm okay. I like we did in the beginning. I've also talked about how I've gotten a lot more relaxed over my 6 to 7 years of podcasting. I used to be like, oh my God, it has to be perfect. It has to be this, it has to be that. And now all these years down the road, I'm like, whatever. All perfection is just out the door. But then again, that's what also can make a show perfect. Personal and personality is what really makes a show hum, from what I have observed from the reactions of other people. So, 50th episode, drugs, fire, and cranberries. It's all about the stories of Bandon. I could have fit more in, but after a while, I'm like, I need to just
More of what? More drugs, more fire, or more cranberries? We got
More petting zoo.
Oh no!
I got the game park safari in. I got
I think all of those things are involved with the game park safari.
Yeah.
Drugs, fire, and yeah.
Yeah, there was
And they were feeding the tigers cranberries. There you go.
That's why they were malnourished. Oh man, that's a sensitive topic. But no, this one took quite a bit of research into, because again, I talk about how while I'm researching, I'll have questions that pop into my head that I personally want answered. So I go and I look, and sometimes it'll take me 2 hours of looking. Well, like Finn talking about the marijuana drug bust, and you even said on your episode, couldn't find a dang thing about Arthur Allen, and neither could I. There's
Yeah,
no there's no
mysterious
mugshot.
character. Yeah.
There's no mugshot. There's barely any pictures, and it's not like this was, in a time before photography. There should be more records about this dude, and there's just not. So it was really bizarre.
That means he knows somebody,
Yeah,
or
maybe.
somebody knows him.
That's certainly a possibility. I mean, I'm not sure where he was incarcerated, but you could potentially get mugshots from the prison where he was incarcerated. But it is really weird that it's just like, oh yeah, biggest drug bust in West Coast history. Yeah. Well, what
Yeah,
else has happened? There's a couple of these though that kind of disappear. There was the that crazy terrorist guy from East Germany that blew himself up running from the cops in Crater Lake.
in Crater Lake. Yeah, yeah.
It's like, and that whole thing just totally vanished.
And that man's name was Hans Gruber Jr.
Mercy.
He disappeared along with all the bodies at Crater Lake. Man, that place
No.
is mysterious. I've done several episodes on that one. Um, but yeah,
Mount Mazama, please.
oh, you're right. You're right. I always tell people Mount Mazama. Well, where's
Which
that?
one? Yeah.
Yeah, where's that? Like, Crater Lake. Well, how am I supposed to know that?
The hole in the earth formerly known as Mount Mazama. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and as of Saturday the 21st, it is officially Welcome to Oregon's 2-year anniversary. God, I've been doing this 2 years already. Oh, and in like a little over a month, I'll have known Finn here for 2 years. Um, so with that, I didn't do it this morning because the recording of episode 50 took so long. So I was going to do the first episode of Welcome to Oregon for YouTube. So that's going to be coming out really soon. I'm a little nervous, but I'm kind of uh it's a really flexible thing because it's almost like it'll kind of also act as sort of a commentary thing. Because I'm almost thinking like I'm not going to do the character intro outro stuff. I'm just going to be like, "Hey guys, you've heard me before. You know what's happening. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what this episode is before we get into it. The backstory on writing it that I can remember from 2 years ago and all that other stuff, and then we'll go right into it. I am doing campfire overlay uh just to kind of give the same little vibe. I mean, I know because it's audio, you can clearly see I'm not around a campfire. Oh, that would be bad.
Well, Marcus, it looks like you're in a log cabin. I
This
mean,
is
the four of us know that you're not.
Yeah.
But if you did that campfire overlay and then just really low light, and I say this as someone who strongly dislikes change,
Ooh.
especially in media.
I actually, and it's funny because it's plugged in now because I didn't know where else to put it. But in my light up here, I do have from our front porch display last Halloween one of the flickering like torch light kind of light bulbs. So
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
it's not a bad idea.
Like if last podcast changed anything about their intro, I would riot.
Alrighty, and on the final thing on my end as well is this week's episode is going to be all about last week's episode, which is getting published this weekend because it was it was a field work project. So Melanie, Kenny's wife, was editor on that one, and we'll go more into that here shortly. So it took a while to get it produced. I haven't seen because I've been with work and house and everything. I haven't been able to actually sit down and look at the whole thing, but what I've seen so far, I've seen a little bit of the intro and I like it. I'm excited. I'm just gonna say it right now. I am so thrilled about the team we have. I am so proud of our members. We have so many dedicated volunteers to this network, to these projects. and it's all for a good cause. It's all to educate people and, quite frankly, have fun learning about stuff ourselves. So I want to give a clap to every one of you.
Uh, yeah, Kenny, I hope Melanie didn't have too much trouble with the audio that I that I retrieved from that. I learned some important things about how to capture audio with a shotgun mic, backed up by individual microphones. Because if you aim the shotgun mic across the front of someone who's got their own microphone, it's anyway.
What was
Hopefully it
No, no,
really
she did pretty good for the most part. I mean, she, at first she was kind of frustrated with everything, but once she figured out all the placements of everything, then she was like, "Oh, now I get it." And
right on.
she got it done.
and
That's usually
and
how it
we
goes.
gotta talk about you can't tape a mic to a shotgun. The people at the university were really alarmed.
Oh
So
my
tell us about history.
It has beanbag rounds, I swear. Sir, that hurts no less.
I painted it orange so the cops would think it shoots Nerf darts.
It,
But then when the bank tried to rob the bank with it, they just laughed at me.
it's got the special zip tie that I get for cons.
Yes.
Alrighty, well, let's move on. David, is there anything special you want to talk about this week?
So much. So much has happened. So our listeners know this public archaeology excavation over at Willamette University has been going on for the last month.
Do they? I don't think they've heard about it. You should talk all about it in great detail.
Oh, let me count the ways. It is getting into its final week of the season. We have found so much. And I just want to say this has been a partnership, not just between City of Salem and the university, but all 9 federally recognized tribes in Oregon. This has been an extremely high-profile event. And because of that, we had on our public day, we had KGW News, we had the Statesman Journal, we had Salem Reporter, and we had a local broadcast,
Yeah,
CC
Capital.
History. Capital came out.
Yep.
All did stories on Kimberly Fitzgerald, on Penn McBain, on just this truly incredible piece of not just Salem history, but Oregon history. And I can tell you from up top, we have been finding evidence of metalworking. One of our volunteers has taken a class on historic metalworking and has figured out the location of what's called a bloom. And what that is it's, from what I understand, it's a space to not only it's to extract iron from the ore, and it's a square foundation of just cobblestones, but they have been finding degraded metal that is magnetic, and also very small bits of hematite, which they would use to extract the iron ore from the stone. And we know that one of the things that the indigenous students were being taught was metalworking. Additionally, we learned that another thing they were being taught was shoe cobbling, and we've been finding shoe soles with vulcanized rubber on them.
Wow.
Yeah, and it gets even better. So the reason that this all kicked off back in 2003, when the university was laying utilities, a classical archaeology professor, David McCreary, decided to take some students out and have it be a real life learning exercise, and collected a bunch of artifacts, and recorded the locations of the walls that he was seeing. He, at 76 years old, we were able to get a hold of him because he left the university shortly after. And honestly, I thought he had passed away because we weren't able to get a hold of him. But by happenstance, we were able to get his wife on the phone, who passed the message along. And 76-year-old David McCreary came out a little stooped now, but he remembered where everything was.
Wow.
And he was able to take people around and guide them to exactly the locations that he had observed back in 2003. So
Wow.
this week we're just going to be closing out units. We're going to be finalizing things and then planning for next year.
That's fantastic. And of course we're going to be digging a lot more into all that here shortly. And I
Mm.
am very excited. It's going to be an odd mix of uh discussing Kenny's recent into involvement and integration into the network. And yes, you over there. And he hides behind. I know he said off mic, but I'll say it again. He came to me groveling. He said, "Marcus, give me purpose. All I do on weekends is sit home and watch anime and play video games. I need something to do." That did
Oh,
not.
King Marcus, please, please, I'm just a peasant. I need you. I need you to guide me.
Warlords do not grovel, Kenny.
Well, apparently I did in this
I
instance.
guess, yeah.
Warlord of the West now. Yeah, that is
We're
the.
gonna have an episode where we all have our own version of this conversation.
We're just all gonna like cosplay in our regal like titles.
Yeah.
Kenny's got a barbarian outfit on. Oh my goodness. Well, before we let the shenanigans take us away, Finn, why don't you got anything to update on us? Penny Dreadful stuff, perhaps?
A little bit, yeah. I just kicked off the second season of the Penny Dreadful. It's now the Penny Dreadful Radio Hour. I've changed the name a little bit and also changed the format a little bit so that it's religiously sticks to 58 minutes long, or at least that's the idea. I went over a little bit last time, but I wanted to get it to the point where I could offer it to community radio if they wanted to, and also it just feels more predictable. So that's going on. Rose Mortimer now has been abducted by bad guys twice, so that's great. I look forward to lots more, I suppose. Rose Mortimer is my current favorite Penny Dreadful from 1867. It's a dreadful called Rose Mortimer, or the Ballet Girl's Revenge. And I opened it up kind of like flipping through it on the PDF, and I landed on a page that showed this a young woman looking about maybe 16 to 20 years old, standing up in the middle of a bunch of kneeling worshipers in church, shooting the preacher with a flintlock pistol. And I was like, okay, yes, please. We're reading this one.
I am obsessed.
Well, what I learned was I had to dig into it, of course, and get the story. And the story was at this part of the story, this girl had been seduced by this preacher, and she had learned that she had been the latest in the long line of them, that he had been discovering that his clerical garb made it possible for him to be more sexually successful than he otherwise might have been. So she decided she was going to save a little trouble for the next girl, in the words of some country singer that I don't remember the name of, and just go ahead and send him to his maker. And then she was promptly incarcerated in a madhouse, and that was that. So, yeah, a little bit. If you don't think about it too much, it's fun drama.
I have a question because I actually came across, I think it was on Paramount, the 3 season long show Penny Dreadfuls. And
Oh yes.
I'm because I'm not aware of what all the Penny Dreadfuls are, I didn't realize that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like Dorian Gray and does characters like that fit into the same universe as the other Dreadfuls? I mean, they would be much later, I would assume.
Well, the picture of Dorian Gray isn't. I mean, it wasn't. I don't think it was ever put out as a Penny Dreadful. It's more
Okay.
like actual literature. But that show, Penny Dreadful, is a super great show. I haven't watched all of it, but it's got a great reputation. And its title is Penny Dreadful, and it covers that same historical period. But they don't use the actual Penny Bloods or.
I noticed that no, like, because yeah, you have Frankenstein, Dracula, and I'm like, none of these are Penny Dreadfuls, which is why I asked about Dorian Gray. I'm like, I don't remember him
These
being a
are
Penny
all
Dreadful either.
fine literature. What
I
are they
know.
talking about? I mean, Finn, you might know. Were those considered fine literature at the time, or were
The
those more
Dreadfuls?
like
Oh
liter-
no, that's
No,
why
no,
they called
no,
them Penny Dreadfuls. But
no.
like Dorian Gray,
Yeah,
yeah, sure.
or
Um,
like
I'm not sure
Frankenstein.
that I'm not sure that Frankenstein got a lot of. Um, I'm not sure. Well, so it's kind of complicated because when Frankenstein came out, I think that was 1818 or something like that.
That was much later in the 1800s, I think.
Not Frankenstein, because that was well, it was whatever. When was that? When was the year with no summer? Because
Yeah,
Mary Shelley was stuck at in
Mhm.
a resort in Switzerland with Lord Byron.
1818.
yes.
Yeah, 1818. So
Okay.
at that time,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
novels were for girls, and the men, the manly the manly man's their literary format was poetry. So, if you were a man and you wanted to be a literary character, you had an independent income and you wrote poetry.
Mhm.
And if you wanted to write novels, that's one of the reasons why so many early novelists are women, because it was like kind of all that was open to them at that time. I mean, yeah, you could write poetry in your drawing room or whatever, but it wouldn't get paid attention to. Whereas if you decided to go do the Jane Austen thing and start writing novels, they'd get widespread circulation, but it was not considered, the top shelf literary thing. So when Frankenstein came out, it was kind of under that cloud. But I think everyone has pretty much always recognized its quality.
Okay. And do you know, because now, I mean, just using gross stereotypes, I would say we would associate poetry more with women and, these novels and yeah, novels more with men. So do you know when that change happened or why?
Well, when the novels started getting really popular, the men were like, "Hey, wait a minute,
Okay. Okay.
that's
As it
ours
goes.
now."
As
Yeah.
it happens.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking, for some reason I was thinking Bram, like Dracula and
Oh,
Frankenstein
Bram
came out
Stoker, yeah.
about the
Mm,
same time, but no, Dracula came out at the end of the 1800s, if I remember right, versus Frankenstein, which came out in the early 1800s.
mm.
And yeah, I did the episode on volcanoes, and I always thought it was fascinating that if not for, I can't remember which volcano went off. Was it Vesuvius?
I think like Krakatoa or something like that. I
Something.
can't remember. I used to know.
Yeah, so it was a global climate changing event, and I always love the fact that without that eruption, would Frankenstein have ever existed at all?
Mm.
Probably
We don't
not. They would have
we
gone
don't know.
skiing.
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe just in a very different form.
In a very different form. It could have been much later. Yeah, we just don't know, it's just kind of a cool thing to think about. And those are the questions I ask myself. The weird ones like, what if?
Yeah. Yeah.
Alrighty. Is that it, Finn?
Yeah, I think that's about it. I'm just plugging away at Offbeat Oregon. That just
Finn, do you ever want to plug your class on here?
well, it's since it's the summer, I don't actually have a class in sesh, but
Well,
I
students will
could.
be wanting to sign up,
Well, I mean, if I want to lead them to destruction, I guess.
Let's fill the classroom up with 15 people.
No, I'm
Motherfucker,
actually.
I want to
I'm,
take your class.
you should just show up sometime. But seriously, I can't remember actually what I'm scheduled to teach. Although now that you bring it up, I'm actually supposed to do some work to get ready for the summer term. I'm teaching one class in the summer. It's called New Media Futures.
Yeah.
Professor Dan Faltisek created it, and basically I'm a TA on it. But I'm not complaining because summer is a dry, you know, impecunious time for guys like me for the most part. So
Mm.
every little bit helps.
I'm
Sounds like a cool class, though.
Yeah, I mean, I taught it last summer as well, but the syllabus was getting really old. I sometimes joke that I really envy like Shakespeare professors and,
Hmm.
early European history professors and stuff like that because they're not making any new stuff. Right? If you're teaching a class called New Media Futures, it turns into New Media Recent Pasts very quickly. So, yeah.
I'm salivating to get back into a classroom. I've tasted fame and I want more. No, that was I'm forever going to say that was one of the coolest moments in my career where I got to and without stumbling too terribly much. Uh, and one of the
Yeah, and if you're up for doing it again next term, I'm teaching podcasting again. I'd love to drag you out, down to Corvallis to do it again if you're
as
up for it.
as many times as you want me to do it, man. I loved it. I mean, work might not like it, but no,
Well, the students really get a lot out of talking to people who are actually doing the thing, as
Hmm.
opposed to, and especially in this arena because a lot of what you learn in terms of production and stuff like that is from people who aren't really engaged in the field. And
well,
I'm sort of engaged in the field, but not very heavily.
well, in one of the comments, I don't know if Jess made it or what, but one of the comments that was made that I remember was just like I didn't I don't know why I made the decision, but I wanted to make sure I was engaging with you, like we were engaging with each other as well. Like this casual conversation, because we do work together and we share content together and that kind of stuff. And I think that's what really made the lecture feel even better was just me going, Do you remember this? I don't remember this. Do you
Yeah.
this casual engagement. So I really loved it. A lot more of the students were engaged than I honestly thought they were going to be. So it was really rewarding. Well,
Right on.
speaking of rewarding, we are a half hour in and we've got a show to do. I knew it was going to be a casual one and a fun one. We've been off screen for a while, so we had a lot to talk about, and we've got a lot more to talk about here because um, as I said, it's pretty much going to get posted about the same time. I imagine the episode is going to get posted just before this one lands. And the all four of us, well, of course, David, because he was working there that day,
Mhm.
but all four of us were at Willamette University on Saturday. What day was that?
Last
Saturday the
Saturday.
14th.
14th. Oh, right,
Thank
right,
you.
right. Thank you. So we were there. And we were there to kind of document what was going on with the Willamette University Jason Lee Archeology project,
Mhm.
which I should mention um, for the uh, YouTube viewers, the two pictures I had posted um, because we don't have a guest, so there's no guest picture, but I posted a picture of Jason Lee, and next to him is a picture of that wall segment that
Mm.
that Kimberly uh, showed us in the binder.
Yeah.
So we it was fun trying to all get together as all of us are independently wandering around the
Yeah.
campus. But so we got to the site, which David, where was that site located at on the university campus?
Okay. So the Indian Manual Labor Training Boarding School, which is as sinister as it sounds, we suspect it's located roughly where Smullen and Walton Hull are today. Kind of that area is the oldest part of campus. You've got Gatkey that's up on the corner, and then you've got Waller, which was built shortly after, as the university was kind of coming into its own. Um, so we suspect that the modern building is slightly offset from the original, which it would have become the Oregon Institute. So the Indian Manual Labor Training Boarding School was in operation for about 2 years. And then by then there was a group of settlers when the mission had failed. They acquired the building and the land it was on and turned it into basically a K through 12 and called it the Oregon Institute. And that was in operation for a little bit. It quickly became the university. I believe it was the 1847 it became Willamette University. And then in the 1870s, this building had kind of become a storage. It was truly abandoned at that point, and it had burned down. And so, as people do, it's good real estate, so they built what would have been the first library right on top of it, but kind of slightly offset from the original. And we know that because two of our students, Hamish and Julian, have truly been doing incredible work with mapping, and they figured out that a section of the modern sidewalk used to run directly to the front door of now it's Willamette's Black Box Theater, but for a long time it was a gymnasium. And so they were able to figure out that this building is now wider than it used to be, and it's also kind of even then its placement doesn't quite make sense, which suggests there was a different building that stood slightly offset from that pathway.
Yeah, that was wild when it actually got pointed out to me, and that was about your work
Mm-hmm.
site. And I looked at
Yeah.
the sidewalk, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
well, shoot, that that really
Yeah.
is. You can really tell.
That little corner really got redone in the 1960s. And so they had the library there, which I believe was the Walton side, and then they had Smullen, which was a separate building. They dug out a basement, they kind of widened things out, and then they joined the two buildings and also dug a very deep basement for that project.
And I will turn it over to Kenny so he's not just sitting there staring at the screen because
Making faces at
I'm
us.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm sitting here going, huh, I wonder if this is just gonna turn out to be this whole episode where Kenny's just sitting there and then I'm gonna get a text, I could have been a
Sorry.
man.
No, because I'm my dad's power of attorney and stuff. I had got an email from my dad's doctor,
Mm,
so I was just reading about that.
No,
Um,
I was actually going to ask you what seeing as you're new to being in the historical community,
right.
what your experience and what your thoughts were on the project, how you felt about being there and getting to experience this, I mean, really landmark project, really.
mm,
No, yeah. No, it was a great experience. It was really interesting seeing like a lot of the tools that you guys use
mm,
and materials and seeing how big the group was. Because
mm.
like I knew that there was going to be a couple people, but I was like, oh wow, there's a lot more people than I was expecting to be here.
Yeah.
And no, it was cool seeing like some of the objects that you guys had dug up and some of the in the like the classroom area
Mm,
and I thought it was a unique experience like watching how your colleagues that would tell us like when the ones we did with the interviews
yeah.
um that all the information that they had
Mm-hmm.
and stuff and it was an incredible experience because it was just like oh wow I like there was stuff I didn't even know about this
Yeah.
and I kind of went in a little blind because I didn't get a lot of time to research because stuff that's been going on with my dad
Yeah.
um but no it was great and it was fun and it was just a beautiful day
Mm,
and it it was really lively there. Like if I had a question to ask someone, no one hesitated,
yeah.
which was great.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing about archaeologists is we're all independently making little observations as we go. And it's the job of the certified archaeologist to kind of compile all of those little, individual perspectives into one narrative. And we love to talk.
Mhm.
So I always laugh at things like Graham Hancock, where he's like, the things that archaeologists don't want you to know. No, no, just ask us. We'll tell you everything.
Well, and that's a big thing too, is I always hope that just the simple act of inquiring with academic groups like this also helps
Mhm.
their own work along. Like I was really excited and happy that both Kimberly and
Pen.
P with an N?
Yes,
Okay.
short for Penelope.
Okay,
But
thank
if
you.
you call her Penelope, you will get struck with a shovel.
I don't see a shovel coming through your window, so you're safe.
Yeah.
I really can be terrible with names, and I always get like that embarrassment of like, I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Yeah.
So okay. No, that is good. That'll help me remember.
Mhm.
Because I was thinking pemmican.
Oh, no, that's a food.
It is a food. Um so I was really excited that both of them
Mhm.
many times said, that's a really good question, and it actually felt like I was
Yes.
bringing something to the table.
Mhm.
One of my, because everybody knows I'm a macabre storyteller, and I couldn't help myself because of what this place is.
Mhm.
Well, really, the frontier in really most places, there's always going to be some sort of cemetery plot
Mhm.
for homesteading, for all this other stuff, and I couldn't help myself. I thought, or I asked, do you really feel that you might come across bodies
Mhm.
in the ground? Um, and Kimberly's like, well, about that.
Yeah.
A lot of children unfortunately died here. I'm like,
Over
oh,
40
right.
and
I,
two and this over 40, and that was just in this location. There were more in Lee's first operation over, I believe it's not Shampooey. It's Mission Bottom, just that park just outside of Kaiser.
I should have asked now that I'm thinking about it, but you probably would know. Have any bones been found yet?
No,
Okay.
no. What we know, and this is some of the research that I have done, just kind of on the side, just going through Jason Lee's journals and some of the Methodist journals. Um, they did not treat indigenous burials quite like people would have treated African American burials. African American cemeteries would have been very far from a white cemetery. From what we know, the students were buried in the same cemetery that the missionaries were being buried in. And so, my current theory, and this truly was said to me by Dr. Scott Pike, who is one of the main archaeology professors at Willamette. Kimberly had the same thought because she's read all the documents too, is that any students would have likely been buried in um, whatever cemetery was active at the time that the Methodists were using. They probably had temporary grave markers, if they had markers at all. Um, and that's probably, on one hand, why we haven't found them, and why it's been difficult to kind of locate where those burials might be.
Was there a taboo against burying black people in a cemetery with white people back in the day?
I'm not aware of a specific taboo. I'm thinking of like the African American Cemetery in New York, and the cemetery in Fort Vancouver. Um, they may have buried black folks around like impoverished white folks, but I'm thinking of specifically like East Coast cemeteries where you had your black cemetery and you had your white cemetery, and they
I'm
were
gonna have to
pretty
look
far
into
apart.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then
look into because there's a fairly famous grave in Corvallis,
Hmm.
and which was placed there in 1870. I want to say 1874, and it just says "Aim, slave of John and Mary Porter," and
Okay.
it's in the family plot.
Okay.
It's not a very elaborate gravestone, but it
Yeah.
is a gravestone.
And then we've got to take into account this is the frontier. And then, people may have had different attitudes towards the people they had enslaved. If they
Clearly
had,
they did.
yeah,
And
if they
the
had
weird part about this is that 1874 is considerably after the Emancipation Proclamation. So,
quite a bit, yes. Yeah, and so that person may have been freed by that point or struck some kind of deal. It's hard to say.
yeah.
But cemeteries, specifically in the Pacific Northwest, are very under-researched, especially ones about the frontier. And I was talking to I need to know her name because it's bad that I don't. um, there was a student that Kimberly had worked with. I believe, goodness, I just need to pull that article up really quick because she is very important to this work. Mm,
silence. It's so great for an audio
Well,
format.
it's
Well,
it's her work
Well,
about
I
the
can fill it with
Chinese
something.
cemetery.
I mean, like with the cemetery thing, it could be based on like because of the separation back then. It could also be based on class.
I was gonna say,
Very
Um,
true too.
Popper Fields.
Yes, and
yeah.
that's the word I was trying to remember. Kirsten Strauss is the person who I was trying to remember, who has done really the lion's work of this research out here. She, I believe, wrote her thesis just generally talking about cemeteries from the frontier time, but has been really instrumental in projects afterward. Like what Kimberly did with the Chinese cemetery here in Salem.
Yeah, I don't know if in the grand scheme of things we really dug into who Jason Lee was for the uninitiated.
Yeah. Oh, that's yeah.
I'm just gonna take from Oregon Encyclopedia just the first paragraph. So few names in the history of early 19th century Oregon are better known than that of Jason Lee. As the first Protestant Christian missionary to the Pacific Northwest, Lee exemplified the effort to convert Northwestern Indians or Native Americans. I'm just obviously quoting what's written here to Christianity and assimilate them into Western culture. Lee also played an important role in promoting white settlement in the Willamette Valley. While generally failing in his efforts to Christianize Native Americans, he helped lay the foundation for the annexation of Oregon to the United States.
Yes.
And I talked with both Kimberly and Penn about Jason Lee's character because we know
That's something that archaeologists don't do. that
it's
that
just
is I'm sorry to cut you off, Marcus, but the archaeologists generally do not take guesses at character.
right, right. Well, and but there's also yeah, it's yeah, it's you can find bits of evidence from the physical.
Hmm.
I mean, of course, it's easier to characterize somebody in a more villainous light through physical evidence than
Yeah.
their good deeds. But
Yeah.
from a historian's perspective, he was a controversial character.
Deeply so, and it's in his time, he was considered a very poor administrator. And that's why and we know this from journals. I believe of Cyrus Shepherd was his name, was one of the, oh, he might have been the one that died early. There's so many names, man. um, but basically, it wasn't quite a mutiny, but there was a lot of unrest within the mission, and his contemporaries considered him to be a poor administrator. I don't, n- and part of that poor administration was the death of the students. They did not understand that they were dying of disease and neglect and very likely abuse. Um, and so they were just seeing that their, at the time, very expensive mission was failing. And that is why they called for Jason Lee to be removed. So he went back to Quebec. I believe he was from Stansted, Quebec, but was educated, I believe, in Massachusetts. Um, and it wasn't until really the end of World War One, or just before, when there was kind of a renewed interest in, quote unquote, pioneer stories. And of course, Salem experienced that as well. Um, and so there was an effort to sort of not quite restore, I guess, little R restore the Mission Cemetery, where Lee buried his first wife, and Ann Pittman, I believe, was her name, and their first child. Um, and they had Jason Lee's remains shipped back to Salem by rail and buried him there. And there, that's where we get the statue of him and John McLaughlin.
Yeah,
And
and
so I
I
was
think
just going to finish up with that is sort of when his story got rewritten into one of like almost like a tragic romantic figure.
yeah, and that's actually I'm glad you finished with that because that's what I was going to say was it judging by because what I meant was when it comes to archaeology, it's the journals that
Yes.
you read and you look into this person's character and go, okay, there and I've said it before where to people because they're like, well, there was one comment that was made where, history's written, it's done, it's whatever. I'm like, no, it's not because
Yeah.
you can take what we perceive as a very villainous character in history and then one day a journal is found. That
Yeah.
explains all the reasoning of why they did what they did. Doesn't make it right, but you
Yeah.
go, okay, we understand more about this individual than we did, and that uh, is, I believe, very much largely falls into archaeology, right?
Well, we are looking very much for buildings. We are looking for physical remains of things, of stuff. Archaeology is very much that study of stuff. And so it gets very difficult when we try to sort of make character judgments.
Right,
Well, for one thing, we weren't there. And we only have basically what we're reading from historians and from journals to sort of guess at, okay, this is why this thing is here and not over here. So we do concern ourselves with people, but not to the level that historians do.
right.
Um, and
It
so we can kind of look at really just the impact that Lee had, if we want to try to make character judgments. Because at the time, he was just considered not an idiot, but just kind of a failure in his own time. But when we talk to tribes and, you know, the descendants of people who were impacted by Lee in that mission, um, things get very difficult because you have to understand that on one hand, yes, our state was founded, but like sometimes we ask ourselves at what cost.
right. No, absolutely. And that's always like, yeah, the interesting thing is when archaeology and historians come to meet together to tell the story. The both the physical and the non-physical. You look at Jason Lee, and I, from what I've read for a long time, it's almost like he was, yeah, this villainous character, and then you kind of look at some of the other back stuff, and um, you almost wonder because history is written by the victors, sort of thing. Who's really telling his story? Is it him or is it his contemporaries that go, well, he was a
Yeah.
terrible person, he failed? Um,
Yeah. Well, and they didn't consider him a terrible person, his contemporaries. They just considered him a failure. And then it was sort of post World War One, where we have people um going, well, he's this very brave pioneer and this tragic romantic figure. But I believe one of his contemporaries was still alive when that story was getting rewritten, and he was interviewed, and he goes, "No, that guy was a failure. Why are we lionizing him like this?" But it's when because a lot of times we don't talk to Native communities, we don't listen to Native communities. This perspective of the impact that was had went unsaid for a long time, or at least it didn't go unsaid, it went unlistened to.
well, now that was a question that I asked Kimberly was, God, there's so much tragedy that comes out of this kind of stuff. White settlers come, they uproot an entire civilization,
Hmm.
not just in North America, all over the world.
Yeah.
European settlers have done this. So, I always try to ask the question, as has been our theme of 2025,
Hmm.
what positivity has come from this? Were there any success stories where Native Americans were, they actually learned, not in the sense of let's integrate into white culture, but in the sense of, you teach anybody an important skill that they can take with them later in life. And I asked that question. She said there was a couple of cases, and I wish I could remember them now
Yeah.
by name, but she said there were a couple of examples of Native children that did go on to become
Yeah.
important figures in their own right. And part of this helped them because they were translators or that sort of thing.
I would mostly just say we can't speak for Native people or for Native communities. We could kind of guess all day long, but it's like, I mean, Native people already understood farming. They weren't doing agriculture, but they were doing cultivation. They already understood animal husbandry. Maybe they weren't doing metalsmithing in the European way. Maybe they weren't, doing Euro-American arithmetic. Um, but they were already doing things like carpentry and construction. And so kind of assuming that they didn't know how or that they needed to be taught the Western way, I don't think is the right question. I don't know what the right question is, though.
Yeah, and of course, never want to make it sound like that, they were know nothing people. I talk about all the
Right.
time where, a lot of these, they civilizations only advance as far as they need to sometimes. Europe
Yeah.
had to advance because there was a lot of, monarchy system. It was
Hmm.
cold, you got to figure the environment.
Hmm.
So they had to do things to, keep warm or keep comfortable or whatever. And
Defend themselves from this empire or that one.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, where and natives had to do a very similar thing. Tribes warred with each other
Hmm.
in very similar ways. But I think I think when you think of like globally, religion didn't necessarily fit into what the Europeans dealt with. Oh, you don't worship God in the same way we do. They I believe all had a very similar spiritual system. They mostly fought over land and resources and stuff like that. And a lot of
Yeah.
them, especially like our coastal, I always thought was a really cool thing to learn was the coastal castes specifically
Mhm.
had a much different oh, what do you call it? A different structure than
They had a kind of a top-down social stratigraphy, social strata, stratified society. Um, I'm not terribly up on how it worked. It's not a one-to-one to anywhere else, because people could gain wealth and lose wealth overnight, you know. But wealthy families still kind of retained good reputations up to a point, even if they materially didn't have a lot at a given time. Um, yeah. So people are just, I mean, we've got the stereotype that every, native community from that time period was like the plains natives who,
Right, right.
were truly migratory, lived in teepees, but, people were truly different everywhere you could have gone.
Yeah, like I said, it goes back to like Europeans had to do things one way, Asian cultures had to do thing one way. A lot of it really had to do with environment. What was your
Mhm.
weather like? What was your climate like? What resources did you have available around you? So
And
like,
what do you value as a community at that time?
yeah. So like, the coastal, like the oh God, I'm trying to think of coastal our coastal tribes like Chinook, I think.
Yeah, like the Chinook,
Yeah, so they had like more house system like the Europeans did
hmm
because their wealth was so great. They drew from the
hmm
ocean and the rivers that were plenty. They had
hmm
great vegetation. It was really fascinating to learn that
hmm
versus like we are talking about the more nomadic plains natives who uh, moved around and stuff
hmm
like that. Um, what did you find anything in your hole?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I've
my
been wanting to
doctor
ask
was
that for a while.
usually that's a question I keep for my doctor. Oh wait. But I found, and yeah, we are kind of running out of time here, but I'll wrap up by answering this. I found a very large piece of blackboard slate. And so this would have been before paper. And so people would have written on handheld blackboards or blackboards up on the wall. And this was a very large kind of corner of blackboard that still had the mortar on the back from how it would have adhered to either, a little wooden frame for a student or for a larger blackboard. And being a very thin and brittle material exposed to high heat that would have shattered into a million pieces during the building fire, or even if somebody dropped it. It's like we tend to think of artifacts as like in these intact treasures, but they're not. It is truly what people discard and leave behind, and that tends to tell us a lot more about a group of people than an intact thing, because that discarded, left behind thing is still in context of a place.
Yeah, Kimberly was talking about refuse piles.
Yes,
Is
we
is
love
is the
middens,
gold
we
mine?
love
Yeah.
privies, yeah, because people have been throwing stuff down the toilet for as long as humans have been around.
Yeah, so well, no, that's great. I'm glad we got to sit down and elaborate more. I mean, uh, there's so much to talk about with this project. We could talk all day, and I don't think we could quite possibly cover everything. So, um, to all the listeners and viewers out there, you have this, you have the video that we just released, the field project, which yes, we're going to be doing more field projects. Everybody was really really pumped and really excited after we did that. I don't know where our next field work is going to take us, or yeah, I don't know where field work is going to take us next. Actually, I think we talked about getting in touch with Carrie Timchuk about the vault,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
Yes.
going in there and
Yeah.
doing a field day in there very soon. So I need to email him and make sure that offer is still on the table, which I'm sure it is. Anyway, David, thank you so much
Thank you guys.
for your work.
This has been an awesome experience all around. Just being able to be here with you guys and being able to share it with you has been a real treat.
Well, and I like uh weirdly enough, I like our tense discussions.
Yes.
It, tension and stuff like that doesn't necessarily always have to be a bad thing. It's all
I
about
agree.
educating each other. And I think the biggest thing right now is just the culture we live in. None of us want to like get marked as terrible people because, oh my God, how could you think that, natives were so savage? It's like we don't. We're having a conversation about that, about
Well, yeah.
their struggle with having to deal with that exact
Yeah.
mindset about these white settlers that came in and thought, oh, you root around in the dirt, you're no better than I am, which is not the case at all. I mean, they were far more advanced than the European colonials that came here because the
Yeah.
colonials didn't know how to survive here. The natives did. They've been
Well,
surviving here for thousands of years.
and the colonials also didn't bathe, and they went to the bathroom in their drinking water.
Yeah, and they had broken English. Everybody always thinks that like Shakespearean or stuff like that, like, oh, the Londoners, they talked so eloquently. I'm like, no, no, they
Yeah.
they
But and it's like we are reflexive, we are very open to being wrong, and I think that's kind of the key to doing this work.
I even sometimes I enjoy being wrong sometimes because it
Yep.
means that I have something more to study, more to self-reflect, more to look
Mhm.
into and look forward to. Kenny, welcome aboard to this very
To the
chaotic.
chaos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, uh, now shifting to Kenny, I'm really excited that you're here with us.
Mhm.
Never brought this up to you because I didn't think you would ever be interested, and I think it worked out really well that we're just doing our own thing. You're kind of like, can I come in?
I thought he
Can I
kicked
come in?
open the door with a battle axe.
I think he
Probably did. Probably
did.
did. I don't remember. We had a few drinks that night.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that night. Oh, we don't talk about that night. We've
No,
talked
don't
about
talk
too
about
many
that
nights
night.
on this show.
That
Uh,
flower pot will never be the same.
Oh my
oh.
goodness. Oh. Where's my script? Everybody keep talking. I need to find my script. Oh, there it is. Never mind. Everybody
No,
stop talking now.
yeah, I am excited to do more video projects
Mhm.
and stuff. I think that'll be a lot of fun going to different locations and, not only just having, what we have here, but also the fact that like, hey, we're in the community, we're out and about, we go check out places, learn more.
Mhm.
hmm Well, we get to document some really cool things like doing the interview with Carrie Timchuk was like I like to brag about that now. We got a piece of Richard Nixon history on that episode, and
Yep.
it was
Yeah, that was
fantastic.
that was
He did
super awesome.
he did quiz us a
He did.
lot.
He did.
So probably to get into the archive, we'll have to answer some questions about Bob Dole or something before he'll let us in.
Something more than he was just a politician.
Yep.
So, yes, David, thank you for your work. Kenny, welcome aboard. And of course, Finn, as always, I think it is so cool that I get to work with you.
It's mutual.
Yay.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
It's
All
been
right.
lots of fun.
Does anybody else have anything to close out with?
Just it's the last week of the public excavation if you want to get down there and see some things and ask some questions. It's going to be Wednesday through Friday. Uh, and then that is going to be it for the season. And then you can also join our Discord at the Oregon Voices Network. You can watch us on YouTube. You can listen to us on Spotify.
Yes, and we're going to be starting an Oregon D&D podcast soon. Did you know that, Kenny?
No. No, we're not. No, we're not. My brain hurts already just thinking about it.
I know. I thought about it. I'm like, man, that'd be really fun, but that means I have to write more.
Yeah, like you need to slow down.
Yeah, at some point I have to tell myself, no, stop that.
Yeah.
Alrighty, guys.
All
Thank you
right.
so much for joining us. This episode was brought to you by the Oregon Voices Network, a historical podcast network that brings you amazing shows like Welcome to Oregon, a Oregon history and lore podcast, Offbeat Oregon, and the Penny Dreadful Radio Show Hour. I'm gonna have
That's
to.
right.
All right, cool. I'm gonna have to rewrite this. Our our website is now updated to reflect all of these wonderful shows, which, by the way, really happy about that because I just talked to our mortgage lender who I had a meeting with her, and the first 30 minutes were about actual mortgage stuff, and the other 30 were about the network. And I walked
Right
in
on.
because Jess is like, "Why are you so late?" And I'm like, "It's not my fault. Don't make fun of me." But she asked. So, if you want one source for all of our content, social links like our Facebook group, page, and Discord, occasional articles, a store supplied by local artists, which we are edging closer to improving thanks to Melanie. check out www.oregonvoices.net. Also, if you love our work, you should seriously consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/Oregon Voices Network. The money goes towards all of our projects and helps us pay for things like software, assets, and more. If you're listening to the audio version of the show, that jingling, I think, is Finn's cat. It's not.
No, it's Buster, the murder dog.
Okay.
He for a little while there he was bringing in a small woodland creature like every day or two, and so we got him bells so that they'd have a chance.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
He's a bad boy.
Oh no. You can find more of our work on YouTube at youtube.com/Oregon Voices Network. All right, gentlemen, which includes you, Kenny, where can people find you at?
Me?
No, you're last. You're always
Oh,
alphabetical order. David, Finn. Yeah, you are last. Okay, cool.
Oh, wow.
David.
You can find me on pretty much any social media platform at the Spirit of PDX.
Right on. And I'm at Finn at pulp-lit.com. And I've also been trying to stay up with my Facebook account, which just Offbeat Oregon. What?
Just love the chaotic thump.
Oh, that
cat.
Was, yeah, that was Rambo. He, yeah.
Oh, I love the name of that cat.
Yeah.
Kenny,
My turn.
Kenny? Yeah, your turn.
All right. Well, you guys can probably find me on YouTube at Crazy Shino X16, and probably on Instagram Shino X16 as well.
Right on.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. From myself and the crew. Later.
Cheers.
Bye.
Okay, guys, I've got to get going like right now. Natalie's
Gone, get.
over me. So
Why are you still here? Run.
I'm going to go ahead and end the Zoom. I'll upload it tonight when I come back. And
I'll get it sent off real quick. And
set up.
I got to go to Silverton too.
Get on. Yeah, maybe see you there. Take it easy, guys. See you soon.
See you guys.